At 2:37 a.m., a 911 dispatcher received a call that lasted only 14 seconds. There was no screaming, no panic. No clear request for help. Just a whisper. 3 words that investigators would replay hundreds of times over the next several months. The whisper said, "He's already inside," then the line went silent. The dispatcher tried speaking again, asking who was inside and what was happening. But the caller never responded. After several seconds of quiet breathing, the call disconnected. Police immediately traced the call to a quiet suburban home. Within minutes, officers were on their way to investigate. What they would find inside that house would quickly turn a routine emergency response into one of the most unsettling missing person cases investigators had ever handled. Because when police entered the house, the person who made the call was gone. And yet, something inside the house suggested they had not been alone. The house sat in a peaceful neighborhood where nothing serious had happened in years. It was the kind of place where children played basketball in driveways and neighbors waved to each other during evening walks. Crime was rare. The loudest disturbance most nights was usually a barking dog or a passing car. The home belonged to 34-year-old Daniel Carter, a remote software engineer who had lived there for about 3 years. Neighbors described Daniel as quiet but friendly. He kept his yard neat. He occasionally helped older neighbors carry groceries. And although he mostly kept to himself, nothing about him ever raised concern. That's why the 911 call seemed so strange. Daniel had never reported any problems before. No complaints. No threats. No disturbances. Which made his final whispered message even more unsettling. Dispatch records show the call connected normally. The dispatcher followed protocol. 911, what's your emergency? For several seconds, only breathing could be heard. Then came the whisper. Quiet and shaky. He's already inside. The dispatcher asked who was inside the house. But the caller didn't answer. The line stayed open for a few more seconds before disconnecting. The dispatcher immediately sent officers to the address connected to the phone. Two patrol officers arrived at Daniel Carter's home just 6 minutes after the call. From the outside, everything looked normal. No broken windows. No obvious signs of trouble. But the porch light was on, and the front door was slightly open. Just enough for the wind to move it gently. The officers approached carefully. They announced themselves. Police department. No response. They pushed the door open and stepped inside. The house was completely dark. The first thing the officers noticed was the silence. Not the ordinary quiet of an empty house, but a deeper stillness. They began clearing the first floor. Living room, kitchen. Dining area. Everything appeared normal. Daniel's laptop sat open on the kitchen table. A glass of water stood beside it. His phone charger was plugged into the wall. But Daniel himself was nowhere in sight. One officer called out his name. No answer. The officers moved upstairs to continue searching the home. There were 3 rooms on the second floor. 2 empty guest rooms and 1 master bedroom. The master bedroom door was closed. When an officer opened it, the flashlight beam swept across the room. The bed was neatly made. The closet door was slightly open. Daniel's wallet and keys sat on the nightstand. But the room was empty. Then one officer noticed something unusual. The bedroom window was open. The screen had been removed. Outside the window was a drop of about 15 feet into the backyard. Officers went outside to examine the area below the window. They expected to find footprints or disturbed grass. But the yard looked untouched, no marks. No signs someone had landed there. No evidence anyone had climbed out of the window at all. If Daniel had left that way, there should have been something. But there was nothing. Later that morning, detectives arrived and began reviewing the home's security cameras. Daniel had installed cameras around his property the previous year. There were for cameras, front porch, driveway, backyard, upstairs hallway. Most of the footage looked normal. Cars occasionally passed down the street. A stray cat walked across the driveway. Nothing unusual, but when investigators reviewed the footage around 1:30 a.m., something strange appeared. The porch camera showed a figure walking toward the house, but the camera only captured the person from the shoulders down. The face never appeared in frame. The person walked slowly up the steps. Then the video glitched. 3 seconds of footage disappeared. When the video resumed, the porch was empty. The hallway camera showed something even stranger. At 1:36 a.m., 1 minute before the 911 call, the master bedroom door slowly opened. But no one stepped into the hallway. The door simply opened, then remained still. After several seconds, the door slowly closed again. From the inside, by the end of the day, investigators realized Daniel Carter had vanished from his own home. His car remained in the driveway. His wallet and keys were still inside. His phone was still charging in the kitchen. The only clue was the 14-second 911 call. He's already inside. Police began questioning neighbors. One woman who lived across the street reported hearing what sounded like a car door slam around 1:30 a.m. But when she looked outside, the street appeared empty. Another neighbor said his dog had been barking continuously during the early morning hours. When he checked outside, he didn't see anyone. These details were small, but they were some of the only clues investigators had. Detectives examined Daniel's phone records next. His last outgoing message had been sent earlier that evening to a co-worker. It was a normal conversation about work. There were no suspicious calls or threats, but location data revealed something odd. At the exact moment the 911 call occurred, Daniel's phone briefly connected to a nearby tower. Seconds later, the signal disappeared, almost as if the phone had been switched off suddenly. A forensic team searched the entire house. They looked for fingerprints that fibers that blood, signs of a struggle, but the results were almost completely clean. There were no foreign fingerprints, no damaged furniture, no broken locks. The only fingerprints belonged to Daniel. It was as if the person he claimed was inside had never touched anything. Days later, investigators reviewing the security footage again noticed something unusual. At 1:37 a.m., right after the 911 call ended, the hallway camera captured a shadow moving along the wall. But no person appeared in the frame. Just a shadow. It slowly moved down the hallway, then disappeared at the staircase. No one ever appeared on camera. Search teams spent weeks looking for Daniel Carter. They searched nearby woods. They checked nearby lakes. Tracking dogs were brought in. But every search ended the same way, nothing. Daniel Carter had simply vanished. 6 months later, police received an anonymous envelope. Inside was a flash drive. The drive contained a single video file. The footage appeared to show Daniel's kitchen, but the timestamp was 2 days after he disappeared. In the video, the kitchen lights slowly turned on. Then the refrigerator door opened slightly. After a few seconds, the video ended. Investigators could not determine who recorded the footage, and the sender was never identified. Today, Daniel Carter remains missing. His house was eventually sold to new owners. They reported nothing unusual, but detectives who worked the case say one detail still bothers them. The final frame of the hallway footage shows the shadow stopping near the staircase, then shifting slightly, almost as if it turned toward the camera. More than 4 years later, the case remains unsolved. The recording of the 911 call still exists, and investigators still replay the whisper that started everything. He's already inside, but perhaps the most disturbing part is that police never discovered who or what Daniel Carter was talking about that night. And if someone truly was inside the house, no one ever saw them leave.